investigatory faith means. Sometimes the English terms are, they fall short in really describing the form and the essence of what the meaning is. The Turkish and also Arabic terms, Iman-I. The English translation is investigatory faith. What do we all understand from Iman-Tahkiki, or a faith being an investigatory faith? Sam?
Investigatory faith?
Yeah, Tahkiki.
Oh, okay. It means you verify your faith by researching, by searching in the universe, by searching through Quran.
Grounding it with evidence, reasoning, and really consciously holding that belief in a sense, right? And a faith that is not investigatory, how is it? How would you describe that? If the faith is not imitative faith,
you're born into an environment where an alternative is not seen as an option, and you follow through that. You imitate those whom you see around. And that's fine as long as it's not challenged.
When before the Islam, because before the Islam, I went to I used to go to the Catholic, and I imitate all that, but never understand good what is the Trinity in this time. When I studied Islam, I understand all that. It's only one God. I remember this, that imitate all and try to, that my family or my friends or the society in this circle try to teach me, no? And I try to, but not think. It's only, no think and no feel, only
It's almost like Tahkiki, right? The imitative belief is like a social exercise or a social experience, right? Because you socially try to keep yourself within that balance. But whenever you feel lonely or something, it's very easy to break. But Tahkiki, the verified one, is more of a intellectual exercise, right? You actually think about it, you actually reflect upon the universe and things. So it is there. Although there are types of iman, I think how we experience them, like one is more social and one is more intellectual and about thinking.
Correct. Yeah, soon we're gonna discuss the dangers of imitative faith and how, like, in what sense really is investigatory faith important. But before really moving to that aspect, we're gonna read a few paragraphs that describe the essence of it.
If I may, so I'm not familiar with these terms necessarily, but what would you say to the following statement? That imitative faith is necessary at the beginning. Yeah. For example, to imitate like Muslims and what they do. But then a higher state of faith is this investigation yourself, and as you said, grounding it in these evidences.
Right. We can even maybe argue that different parts or aspects of faith can become investigatory one by one.
I think that the imitation is good for motivation, no? Because when I study Islam, I don't understand what happened here, no? But I'm trying to make imitation of the brothers, and I try to, in this imitation, I try to understand, and I put more close to God, not put more close to Islam. But maybe I think that is the first step that you can do in the religion, no? This is an inspiration. Oh, how this brother pray. I want to pray look like him. How this brother read Nursi. How this brother understand Nursi. How this brother is close to Allah. I want to do this. No, I think that this is the first step. No, but it's not you can go more. You can cross the line. No. I continue imitation. It's a start.
Brother Mustafa made a really good, he has put a really good criterion there, I think. Imitative belief is good and there is no problem with it as long as it is not challenged and it is safe in its own circle, I think. So that I think kind of addresses what you brought, right? Is that an accurate answer to? Yeah.
I would say to Timur's question that there's never either or. It's always a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when I look at my grandmother pray, she would not know what Fatiha means. But that does not mean that she's a bad Muslim for that reason. And similarly, I mean, there are many prayers I do, but I don't know what the actual content means. But that doesn't make me anyhow, I mean, for that reason. Of course, I have other reasons of a bad person. So I think it's something which is always between, like if you compare it to playing football, you have to accept the rules of football which have been transmitted to you to start playing the game. But then if you want to become an excellent footballer, then you are more creative, more conscious of how the game should develop.
Yeah.
And then you build on that collective history.
Yeah, I was speaking to a brother who's into this like psychology and education kind of stuff. He was telling me as a general rule of thumb in learning anything, first few steps is to look at what's already there, established by people. If it is like, let it be writing a paper in electrical engineering, my field, or any other kind of field, or learning how to be a parent, for example. The established good way, a rule of thumb, is that as a first step, you look at what is already there, what's already established by people as like good examples. That should be the first step, and then it's of course just like the brother said, good to try to take creative steps based on your own understanding and method, because everybody is unique. And a lot of the same could be said for Iman, faith as well. Brother Timur also mentioned that. In the beginning it's good. It gives you a road, a way, a path to follow that is established by many people that you can trust. But to improve it, to advance it, and to really increase the taste you're having from religion, it can be learning the meaning of Surah Fatiha, it can be looking at different tafsirs, diving deeper to the meaning and stuff. It's of course always good. And in various chapters, various passages in the Risale, Ustad explains different aspects of humans. There's the intellect, there's the heart, there's the ruh, there's the sir, all of these terminology that is being used. It's not all about the intellect. There is an aspect of it from which your heart and soul is receiving pleasure or taste, or however you put it. And for example, the example of grandmas, right, that don't know any Arabic, they have a way of having that taste, and they have a way of experiencing Islam from their heart and soul. Perhaps none of us has. Some of them are really like that, and it's important to be to seek improvement in all these aspects. Intellectual is one, heart, ruh, all of those are others. But today's topic mostly pertains to the intellectual side, Iman, Tahkiki, how to make our faith investigatory and its importance really. So I will proceed with reading a few passages that explain the essence of faith and how investigatory faith, Iman Tahkiki, compares with imitative faith. So in the first page of the PDF that we shared.
Can you enlarge the text?
I also shared on the
We have the PDF.
WhatsApp. I also shared on the WhatsApp.
Is it better? Faith is not limited merely to a general and traditional affirmation. Just as faith has stages and developments, from a seed up to a large date palm tree, and from the exemplary sun seen in a hand mirror up to its reflection on the sea surface, and finally up to the sun itself. Similarly, faith has so many truths that are connected to the 1,001 divine names and the truths of the universe related to the other pillars of faith. The people of truth have agreed that the greatest of all sciences, knowledge, and human perfections is faith, and the detailed and demonstrative sacred knowledge, ma'rifa qudsiyya, that comes from investigatory faith, Iman-I. Not all Muslims have the same level of Iman, right? For example, we can look at ourselves, we can look at other brothers who have more knowledge than us. We can look at the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and we cannot claim that we have the same level as them. May Allah make us close to them. And then at the very top there is the Iman of our Prophet ﷺ, right? And the example here is accurate in that sense. From a seed up to a large date palm tree, or from the sun seen in a hand mirror to its reflection on the sea surface, and finally up to the sun itself. There are all these degrees in faith as well. And it's a matter of effort to really improve one's faith's quality in this sense. In terms of quantity, the faith is the same for all Muslims, believing in all pillars and all the things necessary. But in terms of quality, there's these vast degrees that's really available.
When I can make a comment here,
yeah.
There is one tradition. I'm forgetting if it's hadith, but there were 2 or 3 Sahaba, and they were saying that let's go and revive our faith. And the commentary says that this shows that even for one person, the state of the faith within which you are at the moment can vary.
Yeah.
So they say that even faith is like shadow, it increases and decreases.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to see that what strengthens your faith, and then join those particular groups or do those activities.
Right.
Because it depends from personality to person. Like
right.
If it is shadow, so shadow is both dependent on the position of the sun and your body. So you need to orient yourself to the relevant environment. So it's also within your own self that you have these issues and questions.
Correct, yeah. And different people have different needs in terms of what aspect to improve in their faiths. Just as you said, some of us might be needing assistance in understanding how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really controls every single detail in the universe himself. This pertains to Tawheed. Some others might be firmer in that sense, but they might be struggling in, for example, bearing with the difficulties, the trials and tribulations that affect them. That's another aspect of faith. And it's also important to discover what aspects or branches of faith I need more improvement, and in which aspects and branches I am able to assist others in, right? So there are 2 aspects here really. One is to improve yourself, the other is to discover what you are able to improve others in. And that's also an important responsibility of every Muslim. Another passage right after it, so for those of us that are following from the PDF. Faith is not solely composed of a general affirmation. Faith has many stages. Traditional faith, Iman Taqlidi, especially in the face of the storms of misguidance in this age, quickly extinguishes. Investigatory faith, Iman Tahkiki, however, is an unshakable, unextinguishable power. If a person who has attained investigatory faith were to be exposed to the dreadful hurricanes of atheism, those hurricanes are doomed to remain ineffective against the power of this faith, meaning the faith that is investigatory, that's based on conscious investigation and examination. Even the most irreligious philosophers cannot cause a person who has acquired investigatory faith to fall into doubt or suspicion. There's another.
Yeah. Was traditional faith defined?
I think it's used interchangeably with the imitative faith that we just described.
Yeah.
Right, Jasmine?
From Iman's translation, it says, belief is not restricted to a brief and imitative assent, acceptance. It has degrees.
Yeah.
Also for me, it seems like it's...
Don't trust too much on this translation. It's an AI.
Yeah.
AI translation.
A chapter that I think does not exist in the PDF, but I found very much relevant that I want to share from another part in words is this. Perhaps we can follow from the screen. The affirmation of divine unity, Tawheed, is of two sorts. Now, there's going to come an example that really distinguishes the two versions of faith, let's say. For example, if the goods of a rich man arrive in a market or a town, there are two ways in which one may know that they are his, that they are of that rich man. One is briefly and simply, as with ordinary people, which is, no one apart from him is capable of owning this vast amount of goods. So this person is basically affirming that there's so much stuff has come and this can only belong to that very rich man, without any particular investigation in the details. But when under the supervision of a common man such as that, much of it may be stolen. Many others may claim ownership of parts of it. The second sort is this. Through reading his writing on every packet, recognizing his signature on every roll, and seeing his seal on every bill, the man declares, everything belongs to that person. This type is really with conscious affirmation. This particular type of faith is now based on reasoning and is investigatory faith. Here, everything in effect shows the important man. Similarly, the affirmation of divine unity, Tawheed, is of two sorts. Now he's going to apply the example to reality. One is the superficial and common affirmation of divine unity, which says, Almighty Allah is one, He has no partner or like. This universe is His. This again is very general, doesn't particularly deal with the details. The second is the true affirmation of divine unity, Tawheed, which through seeing on everything the stamp of His power, the seal of His dominicality, and the inscription of His pen, is to open a window directly onto His light from everything, and to confirm and believe with almost the certainty of seeing it, that everything emerges from the hand of His power, and that in no way has He any partner or assistant in His Godhead, or in His dominicality, or in His sovereignty, and thus to attain to a sort of perpetual awareness of the divine presence. This example and explanation also emphasizes that there are various degrees of one's power of Iman, from being very imitative to being very investigatory. The next thing I want to discuss is about, so far what we have read was about the essence of Iman, that there are degrees, not all Muslims have the same quality of their Iman, and so on. And next I want to discuss what the state in today's age is and why it is important, in particular in this age, to make our Iman investigatory. But before we move on, regarding the essence of Iman, are there any comments or questions so far regarding what we read? Bakara, do you have anything to add?
Well, this last example is very enlightening for me. If we just think on the example for the American context, it's well understood. During when the first settlers came here, they all either settled down around the rivers, or the second way was the train, right? They have this long train routes from one point to the other, and let's say once a week or once a month, whatever, they had huge amount of loads, and they come and unload it in the middle of the square, whatever, the train station, and now people come and get their stuff, right? And if you have a big amount of stuff, it should be, of course, such and such rich guys, stuff. But if you can read the stamps, the signature, whatever is the sign about the particular guy, now somebody can come and claim, this part is such and such guys, and you can easily claim ownership of his stuff.
It's vulnerable in that sense.
Yeah.
To really protect all the body of the goods that are there.
So we have statistics. 95% of people believe in God. Yes, alhamdulillah. But when you little bit question it, some says, there should be a supreme power or some initiator of this whole existence. It's such a big, humongous universe, and there should be one that just initiated it. But then he just, leave it alone. Everybody's taking care of their own stuff. So this kind of tawheed is, I don't know, not even acceptable. And then can you read the first statement again? The
first statement of the reality,
the faith.
The faith part.
Yeah.
One is the superficial and common affirmation of divine unity, which says,
Tawheed.
Almighty Allah is one. He has no partner or life. This universe is His.
This sounds to me perfect. Yeah, perfect, complete. But again, when you come to the Rububiyyah part, the executive power, does he have some needs and assistance? Does others have real agency over the creation? Do they really affect the things except his? Is he the la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, right? Is he the only one, or so we start with this is just the starting point,
Right.
So there's no limit in knowing Allah, of course, but there's no end. But there should be a complete faith, right? The kamil iman, like perfected iman, which includes all His names and attributes as is described in the Quran to us.
Right.
It shouldn't be an imaginary God that I just invented in my own, mind, and I believe in God, but in these terms and conditions. Otherwise, what kind of God is He? This is not, of course.
Yeah, very well said.
There's a verse in the Quran, right, that says, if you ask the non-believers who has created heavens and the earth, they would surely say Allah, right? So even the unbelievers, if you push them, unless they are these weird, conscious atheists, like majority of unbelievers, when you push them, they will say, yeah, there's God. But and just saying that there is God isn't really defining it as Quran describes, right? As one God, He's running everything as well as creating everything, but He has not just created on His own. For example, He is constantly watching, He's constantly acting, He's constantly creating, and that type of knowledge, that type of level, is only through investigation, so some reflection, some level of reflection. Because leaving it just as that, it's a vast universe, there must be a creator, that by itself, doesn't qualify. Inshallah is a step, but it does not qualify you for the perfect belief. Because again, as the verse mentions, even non-believers cannot really outright reject God's existence. So it's definitely important to think about it, what is the level, how should I how would I get to that level of iman, of belief?
So my point is, this is a day-to-day challenge for us. You know, it's not something very theoretical, but it is right, you know, within life that we experience this every day. We are dealing with this every day, so we should work on this. You know.
Correct. If I am in need of something, am I at all instances in my daily life affirming that Allah is the real one, only one that can satisfy my needs? Or am I saying that food comes from whatever person, or fruit comes from the tree, and my money, my salary comes from my boss? If I don't put this effort, I might fall short in my rizq and so on. So just like I've said, in pretty much all instances, on a daily basis, we're in the challenge and the struggle of this manifesting the correct iman, right?
Can we think a little bit about what we mean by faith? The legal definition is usually to verify or approve or affirm in the heart and express it with the tongue. Right? But that's the legal definition. And then the part about affirming in the heart, that's a concept that can be expanded in many ways. In the 23rd word, the Rizwan says, faith is intisab, connection. Faith is a connection. So it's not an intellectual thing. It goes beyond intellectual, and it is about establishment of the relationship. So the faith, when it exists, affects one's relationship with what one has faith in. Satan, for instance, when he did not prostrate to Adam and God chastised him, he was talking to God.
Right.
He knew God existed, he knew God was one, he knew God was all powerful, and so on and so forth, but he has missed the appropriate demeanor, the appropriate way of relating to God. He had lost that connection, and therefore he became kafir. And kafir is not somebody who does not believe. Kafir is somebody who covers up. Mm-hmm. It is maybe within one's own self, and therefore, like while inside somewhere one knows, one still denies even to himself or herself, and that's why Mustafa told somewhere that the Adem Kabul and Kabul Adem, right? The absence of acceptance is different from accepting absence. Right? So acknowledging that there is no God, no power whatsoever that is greater than the apparent reality that we see, that's very difficult, and very few people, if at all, do that. But not acknowledging that there is a power, like stepping aside in that, that's a possible thing, because that is the absence of that connection, that relationship that we have or do not have with the Creator, with God. So when it comes on something that we read early on, that caught my attention here, he says, Veduzan says, faith has so many truths that are connected to the 1,001 divine names and the truth of the universe related to the other pillars of faith. Right? So it's not faith in one God only, it is faith in one God. But then God has 1,001 or unlimited, uncountable names, and in each step of our lives we relate to some of those names. Like when we acknowledge, as we are eating our food, we say, we start with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, we contemplate that this is God's blessing on us, and then by recognizing that blessing on us, a sense of gratitude is arising in us, and then we offer gratitude to God. And so in that context, in that process, we are connecting to God as a Razak, a Rahman, and Malik is the owner of it. Our faith is increasing. Right? So in that legal sense of faith, you either have faith or you don't have faith. But in the sense of this connection with God, it is a process that can move on. And it's not only intellectual, so that your grandmother may have very verified faith in the sense that in her heart, maybe not intellect, but in her heart, he has verified that relationship with him. She has established that relationship, that connection with God. Because like one definition of verified faith that I'm saying is hypothetical, I'm not entirely sure because I'm not thinking through it, but the definition of the concept of burhan, that demonstration, is that you know that something is what it is, and you also know that it is not the opposite of that, right? You know that this is a book, and you know that this is not anything other than a book. It cannot be not book, right? So if you know something, that's one step. If you also know that it cannot be anything else, you're also eliminating all other options.
So
in her,
no doubt can interfere in her faith.
yes. So in her heart, she may have verified that there is one God and that cannot be any other God. So it may be verified in a way that we don't have access to, but in her experience and so on and so forth. That would become clear, that would be exposed if she were ever challenged or not. I don't know, some of you were there last night, the elder uncle, I don't know what's his name, is Ibrahim's father, right? And he took the mic and I said, there are two verses, and I wasn't so interested in the verses that he talked about. In the end, he said, so there are these verses, so like, what else do you need? What else do you need? That what else do you need is the verified part of that faith, because he's so certain that wherever he looks, he's going to see the ramifications of that faith. He has that connection. Right?
Even Ibrahim alayhi salam, he did have faith. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asked for a sign, right? Perhaps you know the verse is better. Yeah.
To have it been on.
So there was a letter between Muhyiddin Arabi and Fahrettin Razi, maybe mentioned about it here. But Muhyiddin Arabi said in his letter to Fahrettin Razi, to know Allah is different to knowing that He exists. So these are two big alims, right? So there must be something deeper that we can, let's say, understand in the investigation of the faith, actually. The topic is a little long, I'm not going to read it.
Okay, it really shows, it really demonstrates that...
They're debating something that actually deeper than, let's say, knowing that He exists, or knowing the whole attributes of Allah, for example. So also mentioned about the 23rd word here as a reference.
Yeah. The next passage I'm going to read also is not in the PDF, apologies for that, but it's something that really strikes me pretty much every time I read it. It's from the chapter that's called Conference. Let's read it. In this age, the enemies of religion and Islam have first of all placed the plan to weaken and destroy the fundamentals of faith, Iman, as the first item on their agenda. Especially within the last few decades, in an unprecedented manner, the malicious attacks carried out against the pillars of faith, hypocritically and under all kinds of masks, have been truly terrifying, and very destructive methods that have been put into practice. Yet, a doubt or denial that arises in even one of the pillars of faith is many times over far more disastrous and harmful than negligence shown in the secondary details of religion. Let's read that one more time. A doubt or denial that arises in even one of the pillars of faith is many times over far more disastrous and harmful than negligence shown in the secondary details of religion. For this reason, the most important task now is to strengthen faith by transforming imitative Tahkiki faith into verified, investigative Tahkiki faith, to reinforce faith, to save faith. Above all else, occupying oneself with the essentials of faith has become an absolute necessity and an urgent need, indeed an obligation. This is so in Turkey, and it is so throughout the entire Islamic world. How much benefit can it provide in preventing a building from collapsing to repair and decorate the rooms of a building whose foundations have been worn away? Can one benefit the life of a tree by trying to take precautions, treating its branches and leaves with medicine, while efforts are being made to rot its roots? A human being is like a palace, like building. Its foundations are the pillars of faith. A human being is like a tree, its root is the fundamentals of faith. The most important of the pillars of faith is faith in Allah, then come prophethood and resurrection. Therefore, the knowledge a person should strive to attain first and foremost is the knowledge of faith. The foundation of all sciences, the king and sovereign of the sciences, is the science of faith. Faith is not merely a brief summary affirmation. Faith has many levels. Imitative faith, especially in the face of the storms of misguidance and deviance in this time, quickly dies out. Verified faith, however, is an unshakable, inextinguishable power. Even if a person who attains verified faith is exposed to terrifying tempests of irreligion, those tempests are condemned to remain ineffective before the strength of that faith. Even the most irreligious philosophers cannot cast a person who has gained verified faith into misgivings or doubt. So we've understood that there are different degrees to faith. Now comes the relevant practical part. In this age, this is the one most important duty of every Muslim, to save his or herself faith, to strengthen his or her faith, and also help other fellow Muslims to improve and save their faith from doubts and denial.
The brothers can probably help us here too, but I guess this is bringing to the historical perspective of why it is actually important to attain the Tahkiki or verified belief in this age. At some point, I don't know the full historical perspective, but when we look at the Islamic history, right, like the first generations actually were, it was just a new religion coming up, growing, but they were like Sahaba, Tabi'in, they were, and Tabi'in, they were pretty strong in their beliefs, because they, by themselves, one person could go and educate a whole tribe, country, right? One person would be enough, right? And everyone could be against them, but they were on their own, but they had that level and that confidence in their faith. They were able to do that. After a while, I think, through the history, what we can see is that Islamic countries, states have emerged, and the boundaries have been like physical boundaries. Like there will be like Muslim countries, practically everyone in the country being Muslim. Mm-hmm. There, you didn't need to have that level of intellectual exercise or intellectual effort, because you are not on your own, right? Whenever you have a doubt or something, you have all people around you, that social support structure. And I think for a long time, you didn't really need, because you were never on your own. Like if anything, the state supported you, right? There are physical borders. But then of course, in the last few centuries, this had, like with the globalization, with the ideas flowing in and out, and of course the Muslim countries not being as strong and all that. But aside from all the political reasons, just how the humanity is now shaping with all the globalization and everything, I guess we are getting back to that time when everybody practically are on their own. I mean, there are small communities, pockets of communities, inshallah, that can support people, but it is not at that level of full support that people have been seeing. So again, I think the task is to strengthen our belief on the individual level, so that we can come up again. Because right now, even if we try to be always within a community, we have, our phones, social media, the whole world is talking to us. The whole ideas flow through us. So all the doubts, whatever, all these ideas, doubts, or other distractors, right? We are easily getting distracted by worldly things altogether and all that. Then I think we are back in a time where I think we should start focusing, right? Like as the examples were here beautiful, right? Like the house, right? Right now the problem with people or with religion in general is like a house. There are issues with the foundations, right? There are attacks to the foundations of belief. But then if we just, we will just make sure, we dress more Muslim-like and stuff. Okay, that's good, but that might be secondary to your things like verifying your belief, strengthening your belief, or the tree example is saying, right? There are attacks to the roots of the tree, than just treating the branches. I mean, it may not really help you. So I think that provides a perspective of the problem. What the problem again is becoming. Well, what it is evolving to, right? It's evolving to an attack on belief and doubts on belief, and then strengthening our belief is the primary duty, I suppose, for us.
Right. I would like to a few things from my limited understanding. As far as I understand, there are two foundations in Islam. One is Iman-I billah, faith in the existence of Allah. The other one is Iman bil Akhirat. So in the past, especially during the golden age times, these two were going together. People, Iman billah and Iman bil Akhirat, always together, and everything was interpreted through believing in Allah and also Akhirat. But in the last 2 centuries, the distance between Iman billah and Akhirat opened. And even in Islam, among Muslims, and Ustad wrote this to bring them together. And among the Muslims, what we did, we throw Iman bil Akhirat after that. It is too far away from us. Iman bil Akhirat means meaning. It is connected to our heart. And so when Tahkiki Iman is imitation, is yes, we just believe there is a creator, so what? Right now, how I am going to solve my problems? So since I am throwing Iman bil Akhirat after that, now I have problems, I have my own challenges, struggles, then I need to solve it without connecting to my creator. So then my Tahkiki Iman, what is called their affirmative Iman starts there. Okay. So then how I can see the meaning, Ma'na Hafi, meaning in everything which is transformed into Akhirah, right now. So then it starts solving. Like I got for example, something, it is threatening my life, right? But how, without, affirmative Iman or putting Iman bil Akhirah into the equation there, I cannot really solve it. Just believing in one creator is not going to help me there. So I need to see that what does it mean to me and why I am seeing this and where I am going to be taken, right? And what will happen to me. And through the creation and the reflection of the creation in me, with the guidance of Prophet Muhammad and Quran, I need to solve these problems. And Alhamdulillah, Steiner Collection is doing a great job on showing us how to solve these problems in our daily life, and which is called, affirmative Iman or Tahkiki Iman. You feel it, you see that it is helping me. And Ustad is using this a lot in Steiner. Ustad puts himself in darkness, very deep darkness, and then seeks for help, then suddenly says, this ayah, that ayah illuminated my life, and my life there and solve my problems. And he is showing us a method that if you, approach Quran, putting this together, Iman billah and Iman bil akhirah, next to each other, not in a distance. So then you can solve your problems. Then you will see the meaning there, and it will strengthen your Iman. That is what I understand from Tahkiki.
Salman was saying something.
Okay. Well, I was actually typing up my question, but in regards to this passage up there, in this age, the enemies of religion in Islam have first of all placed a plan to weaken and destroy the fundamentals of faith as the first item on their agenda. When I read the Risale-i-Nur, there's like sort of this pushback against secularism, these ideologies coming from the Western lands. I think post Imam Sayyid Nursi's passing, it's not a clear, okay, today we're learning about communism, or today we're watching something on TV, that's communism, that's secularism. That people are confused because we're consuming so much so fast through the internet, through social media, through TV, through music. And there's sort of a belief in the Muslim community, everywhere I go, that, okay, we can consume the TV, we can consume the music, and we're going to be fine. We'll still be Muslim. But the reality is, I can talk about my own family, I see them withering away, degrading in their belief in Allah on a daily, weekly, yearly level, and not able to withstand the attacks coming from the consumption. I just want to talk about that. I want to hear other people's thoughts about this.
Yesterday there was a discussion about seeing and hearing. It is related to that, how we were all created to really measure diamonds, and precious stones, and it should be very fine. It shouldn't be really vague or loose, So if you go and buy coal, they can give you maybe 10 kilograms more, right? You buy it by tons, right? But when you buy a diamond, it is milligram, maybe smaller than that, and the jewelry is not. It's not going to give you, okay, let's give you 2 grams of diamond, take it, won't. So as we consume lots of things in our daily lives, especially, through social media or TVs, whatever, they are really affecting our scale. And the scale at the beginning is very fine, and it needs to develop, become Tahkiki, but it loses its
sensitivity.
Sensitivity. Then we treat all diamonds, everything is a diamond in this creation, like charcoal, and then we waste a lot. And our youth, our eyes, our body, our relationships, then we start wasting it a lot. So then we have to be careful. I think Imam Ghazali says 3 things are very important in our lives. They go inside us. One is what we hear, what we see, and what we eat.
Yes.
We have to be very careful on these 3 things. Otherwise, we don't even recognize that my scale is getting worse and worse. Then 10 years ago, I'm just making it up. I was very sensitive to this. Now, I don't feel anything. So that is a really bad example for us. We need to really awaken and start fixing our scale. Then as we fix it, then we will be much more careful, and our Iman will improve a lot. Then inshallah. But Iman is not only one thing also, as every person has different aspects of Iman. For example, I remember my dad had a very strong Iman about rizq. He didn't have any concerns about that. But on other things, he had weak Iman, for example. So everyone has seeds of Iman, and one seed can flourish, the other seed may not flourish that much. That's also our responsibility. We need to really try to flourish every aspect of Iman.
There is an author, Lucien Febvre, I don't know if he gets this quote, The Problem of Unbelief in the 16th Century, the Religion of Rebellion. When you said we need to be careful about what goes through us, through our mouth. So Rabelais is a 16th century French author, and there is this idea that he was covertly a disbeliever, etc. And he tries to prove that Rabelais could not have been an unbeliever, because he says it was not possible to be an unbeliever in 16th century France. Everything that you heard, everything that you saw, everything that you interacted with was structured in such a way that unbelief or disbelief, like sincere disbelief, wasn't an option.
Yes.
And whether true or not, but it's a very powerful argument for us to consider here. And then there is this Canadian philosopher, Charles Taylor, who writes about our times as a secular age, in which he says that the secular age, or the secular, modern secular society, aside from the political definition of secularism as a separation of church and state and so on and so forth, is a society in which disbelief is easier than belief. Or faith becomes an option, not the reality of life, not the norm of life, but an option, and it is an option that is actually easier to follow. The disbelief is actually an option that's easier to follow than faith, because you go to your workplace and you have to put your faith at home, you need to be neutral and so on and so forth, all sorts of things like you, and then people are going to have fun time on Friday, they will have a happy Friday, and then everybody's going to drink, so if you don't join in the society, the community, you are going to be left alone, etc., etc. It's easier to be a disbeliever than a believer.
More comfortable.
Or more comfortable, that's what it's meant by easier. Now, another thing is, psychologists talk about this notion of the present bias. We are left to our bare animalistic instincts and so on and so forth. We are drawn to the present, whatever it is. If there's a reward that is here and now, we prefer a small reward here and now to a big reward in the future, and we are also drawn to avoid a small pain here and now than a big pain in the future. And this actually relates to our definition of faith, because faith is faith in the unseen, iman bil ghayb, right? Here and now is here and now. It's present. It's not ghayb. It is the seen, right? Our faith is supposed to be on the unseen, in the unseen, there and then, right? In the hereafter, after death. And we also have a bias to avoid anything that has to do with death. We try, our brains literally shut off when notions of death is presented to the brain. With our intellect, with our heart, with our contemplation, we are supposed to overcome this present bias, because the reason why we are drawn to the present in terms of reward and drawn to avoiding the present in terms of pain is because we have more certainty in the present. We know that what is to come is going to come. It's knowledge, but our certainty is lower. So we need to work on improving, increasing our certainty in what is there and then, so that we can have, we can avoid or we can overcome this present bias. Now, a further problem that we are facing in the 21st century, which people were probably not facing to the same degree in, say, the mid-20th century, is that although they were being bombarded with all sorts of atheistic, materialistic, positivistic, and so on and so forth arguments, they still had the time and place and space and opportunity to sit down and think about them, to contemplate things. But going back to what Sam was saying, we are constantly being bombarded with one thing after another, that we cannot contemplate on anything. It just comes, we live in the present, we live here and now, we cannot even consider what is there and then.
We become numb, we don't even
Numb,
feel it.
and we become heedless, right? We live in a state of heedlessness, ghafla, right? So we need even more measures to overcome this problem today, like being able to like put the phone away, or if you are reading from the phone away, put it on airplane mode, and focus on reading. Like that's why like reading the recital is such a good practice, because for a lengthy period of time, it gives you the opportunity to contemplate something, right? Or if you know Arabic, reading the Quran. Or if you don't know Arabic, reading the Quran and trying to understand the meaning, reading the translation, and so on. Contemplation, like in and of itself. Even the poor contemplation that people were doing in, say, the mid-20th century was better than the non-contemplation and the absence of contemplation that we are not doing today.
You're bringing others.
Yeah, we're a little over time, so
Sorry,
we have to cut it short.
I want to add a little bit to confirm your point. It's not only contemplation by yourself, but also in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah says in the Quran that وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم. It's still like what we are here. We have to get together and sit and reflect, and because this will give us the understanding, the collective understanding of the Quran. Because maybe I don't see, I learned a lot today from this short period of time. And so this collective understanding will help us to see what we cannot see by ourselves, what we can see as a group.
Yeah. This is, brother, yeah, we benefit from each other's iman. That's the reason we are, otherwise we could read in our rooms, right? So everyone is taking it and reflecting on it, and we benefit from it. That is called Jama. Others, it's not something political group. And one thing I want to say, I just read recently that, I don't remember the author's name, I'm not good at memorizing the names. He says if a person goes and alone can eat somewhere without anything, like phone, or can stay home without anybody, anything, that person can do everything. Nowadays, it's not easy. Without phone, without someone or something.
If you told this 200 years ago, you would be crazy, right?
Yeah, I stay home by myself.
Jazakumullah khair. May Allah increase our iman.